Welcome on into Wagered on Tilt. I am T, and today I wanted to continue the progress that we've been making through the basketball model. In the model, we've been doing things dealing with season-long averages and trying to figure out the probability of them being able to score a certain amount of points within a given game. Now, those can give us some decent leverage. However, if we could create a lineup model, we can actually do better predictions on the actual outcome of the game because now we can adjust for injuries and things like that, amount of playing time. You can also use these types of models to do prop betting. So in today's video, we're going to discuss how do you set this up, the basics of it, how do you account for the time. Now, time is one of the most important things in a lineup model and ensuring you're getting the proper values put in there. Now, in this video, we are going to be using average times over the games that players have been playing. Now, you can also populate the times based upon what you think they're going to play. So as you see players play time and time again, you're going to start to realize what usage they have in a game. Are they getting pulled late in the game if it's an absolute blowout, things like that. So we're going to go over some of that today in Microsoft Excel. So let's go ahead and dive on in. All right, so now let's get into the actual lineup builder. So previously we did have this information where we are looking at the game information to try and get a little bit of a baseline for where we think the score and total might go. So what I've done is I've created a new worksheet within the Microsoft Excel workbook and called it Player Stats. And all the stats are going to be in here. I had to write a scraper to collect all the data. That way it is available. And as you can see, this is for the 2023-2024 season of the NBA. Whereas for the other information, we're using kind of prior seasons. That's okay because, again, we are far enough into the basketball season now to actually start using some of this information from the current season, so it won't impact it as badly. So in here, we've got a whole bunch of data, and some of the data that I did add in here is going to be the field goals for a 2-point attempts, the percentage, the possessions calculated, and the game percentage of time played. So here, this player played for 5 minutes and 37 seconds, which generally comes out to being about 2% of the game. The way I calculate this, though, is not just the 5 minutes against the 48 minutes of a basketball game. I calculate it by there's 5 positions that you could possibly play on a basketball court times 48. So I took the 5 minutes here and divided it by 5 times 48. And then that gives me the actual percentage of time that they're on the court, because you need to take it as a full team amount of time available. Otherwise, some of the numbers could come out kind of weird. If you have a different way of calculating that, that's totally fine. This is how I do it. This is how I've learned to do it. So again, it is up to you. Now in here, we've got a lot of different player information, right? We've got the position, the player, the game season, the date, the minutes played, field goals, all of this stuff. Again, use a scraper to get this if you can. It'll go a lot faster. Now, I also have another sheet called Lineup, and in here we have team, the name, so that's going to be the actual name of the player, the percentage of minutes, an estimate of time, the possessions per minute, and the expected possessions. Now, this information is going to be populated by using things like VLOOKUPs and stuff like that. However, in here, you can start filling out the actual name, write a formula to pull in the team name, and then this information will be done the same way with a formula. So I went ahead and jump cut here. I went ahead and highlighted the actual labels, and I put in some player names, and this is going to be simulating a game. This is going to be Boston against the Miami Heat. And in here we have players' names, right, for each team, and we want to make sure that we have stats for them so we can look up their team name. Now, if we come into player stats, the player's name is column B, and the team ID is in column F. So a quick way to do this is you can say equals indirect, double quote, ampersand for the and, match, and we're going to say B2 from, and then if you click on the sheet and then choose the column, it'll just pop that in there in the formula for you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this over here. Get rid of that extra spacing I grabbed. And switch it out to F because that is what the column is I want returned. And that can sometimes be a little bit faster if the scenario happens where you don't actually have the data. So here we have a miss where it's saying this does not exist. Let's go ahead and look up this player's name, see if we can find it anywhere. All right, so they exist. However, when we did the scraping, right, we didn't account for the characters properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this data out. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to do Control H, and I'm just going to put it in there, and then we're going to say player lineup, and we're going to grab the proper spelling. All right, go back into the player stats, and we'll just flip this out real quick. All right, so we made 32 changes, it looked like, and we'll come back into player lineup, and it's there. So we're going to go ahead and copy and paste this down here, and same thing, we're going to probably see a couple break. So here, right, we're getting the wrong team name, so we can go ahead and look this player up and see why we're getting the wrong team name. Most likely they switched teams in the middle of the season. So let's go ahead and take a look. Chicago, and boom, here they are in game 31 with Miami. So we can go ahead and double check this information, especially for people like me that don't know all the NBA players, right? This is saying this is one player that exists. We come in here and we can see that there's seasonal information, right? So in that scenario, you have the option. You can either omit this data based upon what you believe is truth, or you can go ahead and keep it in. Now in here, you're going to see that we have some of this data duplicating. It's because of the way that the data got scraped, right? So here, this is all the same data. So you're going to want to clean some of this up when you go through the scraper. Again, I barely got done pulling this information in and then went ahead and started setting up this video. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly clean up the data, and then we'll come back to it. All right, so I cleaned up the data, and we're still going to be seeing this in here because, again, we're looking up the first record match, which is why it's giving us the wrong team name. But that's okay, because as long as you understand that, it's not a problem that it's passing in the wrong team name. If you want to modify this in a way that it pulls in the actual matching team, you'd want to add a field like here where you pass in the team name, and then it'll try and find the first matching record with that player's name. And then that way you can kind of truncate it if you feel that their stats are going to be vastly different on one team than they've been playing most of the season. So in this scenario, Terry was on a different team. Maybe you believe he played a different way for that team than he will for the Miami Heat. So you want to only use Miami Heat data, that's fine. But again, remember, you're going to have limited information based upon that just because it's a mid-season transfer. So now that we have that, we're going to want to go ahead and start pulling in some information. So we're going to want to try and get Jason Tatum's and everybody else's percentage of minutes, which then will go ahead and get our estimated amount of time within the game that they'd be playing. And then that way we can figure out roughly where they're going to be at. So in here, we would want to go ahead and pull in the average minutes. Now in here, right, if we come all the way over and look at this data column here, we have percentage of time, right? We can pull this in and then try and calculate that out. So we're going to say that's column AJ. So we want to go ahead and get the average from column AJ for Jason Tatum. So we're going to go ahead and build out a similar formula that we used on the previous videos dealing with the league averages. So I'm just going to say indirect and match, where I'm going to say B2 is going to be coming in from the B column, which is here, and we'll say perfect match that. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab this and say AJ. All right, so we have that. Then I'm going to come over here and then find the count ifs for that. Now again, I'm just putting this here so you can see how I'm building the formula. This is not the actual formula that we're using for estimated time. We're still working on percentage of minutes. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and grab this information right here. So I'm going to say equals count if, and we're going to put in the range information, if I could actually type, and B2. So we have the range here, and then we have this one pulling in the first record. So we're going to be able to say from there, and then we're going to say indirect here. And we're going to go ahead and match plus count if, and then we'll say player stats B to B is equal to B2. Right, so now we've got this secondary indirect, and then we'll just wrap this inside of an average, because now we have that range set, and this should pull back our info. All right. So on average, Tatum's going to be playing about 14% of available game time. So the next thing that we're going to want to do from 14% is we're going to pull this formula down. I've turned off automatic calculations and forcing it to go manual. That way it doesn't lag out Excel while I'm moving things around. So now I'm going to say equal sum, and we're going to sum this. So the percentage of time, right, you would think would add up to 1. Well, here we're going over 1, and that's okay, because we're going to go ahead and balance this out when we get into the actual formula for time. So for the formula for time, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and take equals this number, and then we're going to divide it by this summed number, which is going to basically normalize what we're looking for. And then I'm going to say times 240. The reason we're doing 240 is that there are 4 12-minute quarters, which is 48 minutes each, and then there are 5 players that they could potentially fill. So we'll say that number times this number here equals 240. So it's all available court time. It doesn't have to be only the 48 minutes because, again, this player could theoretically be playing any position at any given time. On the court, they could be filling in that space, plus you need to account for all the players on the court at any given time. So from here, let's go ahead and do a couple of things. We're going to go ahead and clean up our formula just a little bit. So we're going to come in here and I'm going to lock on C and lock in on C12. That way when I copy this formula and paste it, and then I actually hit F9 to update it, we get all of the actual data. So in here, you're going to notice that I can then double check that, hey, this is accounting for all 240 minutes of available court time. Let's go ahead and evaluate that. And right there, you can see 240 minutes of court time. So we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to take this formula. We're going to paste it in here, drag this down, and same thing. We're going to copy this, paste it here, copy this, paste it here, copy this, drag this down, and then we're just going to F9, and everything is updated. And again, we're going to go ahead and copy this, paste it here, and F9 it. So here, this is slightly off, so we can figure out why this is slightly off. So here to there is summing properly. This is probably because we copy and pasted a locked cell, which we did. So we need to update this into cell, I believe that's 25. There we go. And we'll copy and paste that down, and F9. There we go. So that is how we are going to be getting the estimated amount of time a player is likely to be on a court. Now, please take notice that this is not accounting for home or away, streaks of time on the road. There's different ways that you can quantify this, right? You want to think about how much time do I really think this player might be getting. You can go ahead and even add that in manually. So if you don't want to do a percentage of minutes, if you think you already have a good feel for a player, feel free to just punch in their estimated amount of time. But again, remember, by the time you sum all of this information for all of your players, it should sum to 240. Again, that is because you need to account for all players being able to position themselves somewhere on the court over a 48-minute window span. So this you can go ahead and key in. I do that for WNBA. I will key this in once I start to get a feel for the percentage of time that they're going to be playing. And that allows me to modify it when I'm dealing with injuries and things like that. If you're not advanced enough to do that yet, don't worry, you'll start to figure it out. So that is it. Like I said, this is not a very complex thing to build initially. You really want to focus on the estimated amount of time that a player is going to be playing. If you're using seasonal data, you need to account for the minutes based upon the 240-minute mark for NBA. For WNBA, it would be 200 minutes because they play less time in a given game. Now, when you're setting all of this up, again, you're going to want to make sure that you're using the indirect formula, pulling in the correct stats, you have clean data to pull those points in from, and then that way you can set it all up and then do the correct calculations. Now, this was very simplistic. Again, we're just covering time within this video, but time is a critical piece to actually calculating possessions that they're going to have and how many points they could put up, how many rebounds, and things like that. So as I noted also in the video, this is not accounting for home or away or strength of defense or anything like that. So this is a very basic system. So you want to bolt onto this and do much more. So in the next video, we will cover possession count and things like that, but it's all based upon the time that we've learned how to calculate today. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop me a comment. I will answer as soon as I can. If you need any assistance with the formulas, please let me know. I can help you with that. If you are in the unabated Discord, you can reach me as the T, or you can reach me on Twitter or X as Wagered on Tilt. If you have any suggestions or things that you'd like to see or improvements to the videos, please let me know. I love to go ahead and update the content that I'm providing for everybody so that it's actually useful. I don't want to just throw out random garbage into the internet. If you would like, feel free to subscribe and then hit the notification icon. That way you are notified as soon as the next video is available. So until next time, happy wagering.